Hello to everyone. It's Next Big Future. Brian Wong here, and my good friend Randy Kirk. We're going to talk about space, SpaceX, and Mars colonization. There's been a lot of YouTubers, Sabine Hossenfelder, a very popular science YouTuber, saying that Mars colonization won't work. There's no economic reason or business case for it. And Neil deGrasse Tyson has also been saying this is a terrible thing. You be asking for $1 trillion and then not making money doing it. So I have made a case for what the profitable reason to do Mars will be. So I'll quickly go over that, and Randy will interrupt as needed to get clarification or
Probably
to
like
ask
every
any
few
questions.
seconds, like, what are you even
Yeah.
talking about? Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I say Mars colonization will be profitable. So the case, anti-Mars case, there's no business case or economic reason, especially because it will cost potentially trillions of dollars to do it. And we cannot terraform Mars, which means make Mars from what it is, which is very inhospitable, into something that's habitable for hundreds of years. And you need all this government help. And then the only reason is to save humanity in the long term, which is also just a pretty darn good reason by itself. Like, even if they say the only reason to do is to save humanity in the long term, that seems like a pretty good reason. You might want to spend money to do it. And then they say there's opportunity costs. Somehow, by doing this big thing, you will not have the money to do nuclear fusion or AI.
So, so let me, so let me, so let me interrupt there, and
Yeah,
maybe I'm jumping the gun here. I haven't seen the deck in advance,
yeah.
but Elon the other day was saying that, like with the space program, with the U.S. space program,
Mm-hmm.
that the opportunities that came up because of it that
Mm-hmm.
were never expected, the things that were developed, the things that were invented, the things that were that uh, uh, in terms of metallurgy and
Yeah.
fuels and everything else, all these things that came out of the space program, way more than paid for the space program, without even talking about the benefits of putting satellites into orbit.
Yes. So they have a fundamental misunderstanding of what happened during the Apollo era. They have a fundamental misunderstanding of what happened during the colonization period of the Americas from Europe, the 1600s, 1700s, where any the country that did it was a leader in colonization back in the 16, 1700s. Spain, Portugal, England, France, they all did better. Spending the money and developing technology, solving really tough problems made things better. Like you're saying, for Apollo, the US won the space race against the Soviet Union, and we got all kinds of better computer technology, space materials technology. We became stronger by doing something really tough. Just like if I lift a bunch of weights, yes, I get tired initially, but then I get stronger. And so that is a positive thing. Also, trillions of dollars to go to Mars. Um, People who don't know, the International Space Station, which we do not make any money on, we spent, like 150, $200 billion to develop that. The space shuttle program for 127, whatever launches it was, $200 million, because each one cost more than $1 billion to do.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
launched it, you developed the thing, and then you had to basically rebuild the heat shield, all these tens of thousands of tiles, redo these things in a very delicate way. It was, and neither of those things made money for
Right.
it, right? So we already spent that. And then climate change. We haven't solved climate change. I'm not sure if you noticed that thing. But they have spent over $1 trillion trying to do it and getting nothing back. So to say that we can't spend money on, we are going to spend um, up to like $4 trillion on the F-35 stealth fighter. We've already up around half $1 trillion on
Uh,
that,
uh,
and we're going to go more as we operate those very expensive planes, and no economic value from that, other than you say whatever we're doing from beating up other countries.
right, right, right,
So
right.
yes, so fundamental misunderstanding of government, money, all kinds of things. But I'm going to go to the business case.
Okay.
So pro Mars case, I say there is a business case. I think there is a way to make money, different from all of the different from climate change, different from F-35, different from International Space Station, different from Apollo. Apollo technically didn't have that, although we make the case that you get spin-off benefits from it. And
Right.
NASA made the case that you get spin-off
Right.
benefits from it. Terraforming is not needed initially. I don't have to make Mars habitable for humans. I don't have to like boil the ocean before I can go fish in it, right? So, and partial terraforming can be done. I think it's very easy and doable. And we've already started talking about the government part of it. Wrong understanding about government's role now and in history, even earlier history of 1600. Opportunity cost, more opportunity, not less, because by doing it, you have more opportunity, not less. And Mars opened up the entire solar system and beyond, because if I can launch a fleet of 1,000 starships every 2 years to Mars, I'm doing a lot of other stuff in the solar system.
Right.
So, okay, me, I would raise the funds. I would advise a space company, Sidereus Space. I have SpaceX ownership, even though it's not publicly traded right now. I have some SpaceX ownership, be it a special purpose vehicle. I did a little bit of work for Airbus Ventures back in the day. I've written over 30,000 articles on deep tech, of which like maybe 8,000 were about space. So I have credibility on space. Okay, so for people who don't know the Mars City plan, Elon Musk wants to have a city with 1 million people on Mars, ideally around 2050, 2060. And he wants to have uh, send 1,000 starships every 2 years, pretty much starting around 2030, maybe. And every 2 years thereafter. 2 years because Mars and Earth are going around the solar system, and you want to launch when they're in the right position so that when you get there, Mars is where you want to be, as opposed to taking a lot longer. Uh, and so, if you do it with 1,000 starships, you're looking at about 250,000 tons every 2 years. 250,000 tons is ballpark about half of the mass that we landed on France during D-Day. Right.
Okay. Okay.
So so D-Day was the world end, toward the turning point in World War II,
Right.
where we had to land a bunch of our armies onto the beaches of
Yeah.
of northern France in order to start taking back Europe.
Right.
Okay, so there was 10,000 ships, planes, all that stuff, 250,000 tons of material. Okay. So a lot of stuff when
So,
when you're doing that.
so
Yeah.
humans have moved this kind of mass
Right.
before. Yes.
Right. But we're at the scale of some of our bigger efforts,
Right.
right? Half a
Right.
D-Day every
Right.
2 years onto
Right.
Mars,
Right.
right? Um, So solving the money problem, which our good friend, another Tesla community person, Steve Mark Ryan, solving the money problem. So I solved the money problem for Mars with gigafactories and AI data centers, right? So if you build factories and data centers on Mars, then you would get value of a trained AI. The data centers are the main thing. People don't know the largest data center in the world is the xAI data center, which is owned by Elon Musk. xAI is his AI company, created only 18 months ago. Um, and they have 100,000 GPUs and NVIDIA GPUs for the data center. And they just added, I think, another 100,000, but 200,000 GPUs, NVIDIA chips. Each one of those chips costs about $40,000. It's a chip plus it's some stacked memory and stuff like that. It's actually more like um, a microwave size unit, quite heavy, that has all, actually you can see them in the picture. So all those racks. So basically, each one of those racks, so a vertical cabinet thing, you see about like eight of
Hmm.
those ones,
Hmm.
and each one might have a few GPUs in it, probably like four or something like that. Depends. There's some cooling and other issues of it. So there's rack after rack of these GPU units, server units. So they're talking about making 1 million GPU AI data centers. Um, xAI solved a scaling problem to make them even bigger. So by the end of 2025, they could be at 1 million GPUs. That costs $150 billion because the chips I was saying was costing like 40 billion. Then you have to build everything else, all the cooling. You can see some solar, and this is another data center, not the XA data center, but another one. And so you have a lot of solar, extra power. You have to build power centers. Like it's sucking the power at 1 million GPUs. You're looking at 100,000 GPUs is about like 100 megawatts, 150 megawatts. At 1 million GPUs, you're looking at 1.5 gigawatts, which is like, three large coal plants, a really large nuclear power plant, um, plus other power and stuff like that. So this is non-trivial amount
Right.
of construction and power they have to do. Plus the GPUs and servers have like insane amounts of wiring and other stuff there. They don't kind of stand alone. There's also like liquid cooling, where there's all these little pipes taking water to cool these things. So it's an insanely challenging thing. Like beneath the floor, in the crawl space area, above in the attic, there's all kinds of stuff going on. But the main thing is $150 billion. So we're $150 billion. We're kind of in the range of an international space station,
Right.
right? So that is what we're sending. You can send to Mars because um, if you go to Mars with a fleet of starships, um, one, people always say 6 to 9 months to go to Mars.
Mhm.
Okay. Starship is a bigger rocket. It would be able to do it in 60 to 90 days. The reason being is it will go to orbit and then it'll be refueled. So we have a bunch of other launches, reusable Starship launching up. 6 to 10 will refuel. So 10% of the fuel left, you transfer the fuel into the one that you're going to leave up there. It gets to 100% fuel. That means it can do um, nine, miles per and 9 kilometers per second of speed versus a small thing with only the upper stages there and have less fuel, and it gets maybe 4 kilometers per second of delta V, right?
Mhm.
So that you can go faster, even though it's only chemical rockets. So I can get there in 2 to 3 months. Um, not the construction times for these massive data centers can be up to a year or more, right? So if I get them transferred over there and I can then build them in 3 months, so 3 months to get there, 3 months to build them, 6 months to build out, all the money and time frames are comparable to building 1 million GPU data center in North Dakota,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, um, so this is a viable thing, and I don't have to pay for the land. I can, whatever I want to do on water, I have all the water rights I want, right? Um, and then I don't need to have necessarily internet connection. They will have an internet connection, a slower speed one, but they can do all the computing to train up the model, and then they just transmit it back.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that works. Um, in terms of the criticism about Musk being, he doesn't have a financial plan, which what Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, TV commentator, and Sabine, nothing against them, but just YouTube person. They have not built huge companies and done all this work. Elon has almost twice the money of Jeff Bezos, clothing in $500 billion. So
Right.
he knows how to make money and make things profitable. So it's like again the factory just there. So Star Factory is another thing. So in Texas for SpaceX, Elon is making rockets, mass producing them at lower cost, which is needed to make 1,000 starships to go to Mars. But also, you could have a facility to make rockets and starships on Mars. So here's a high bay with five of them. They
Mhm.
built this in a few years,
Mhm.
in Texas, the facility to make a rocket factory and all that kind of stuff. So you can transport all the equipment over there. So when they say, is it a business case, you have to have cost and revenue.
Mhm.
When they say, you know, I don't, know what the profitable business case is. They didn't even say, here's the cost, and
Right.
then, but they just assume no revenue, right?
Right.
Anyway, so 1,000 starships, flights every 2 years, $20 billion for fuel for the trip. That includes all the refuelings and that kind of stuff. If we take 10,000 colonists per trip, then if they're paying $100,000 each, then that'd be $1 billion of revenue per trip. Wouldn't make back your $20 billion in fuel.
Right.
If you take 100,000 colonists per trip,
Mm.
which if you did 10 trips over 2 decades, then that would be getting you 1 million people over
Right.
there. They kind of need to get to 100,000. That'd be $10 billion per trip if they're paying $100,000 each. Um, 5,000 starships built on Mars. If each 20 million, then that'd be like $100 billion. So if you build a star factory, a really big one on Mars, basically the Mars Starship shipyards, then that'd be $100 billion, which you could send some of them back to Earth if there's Earth economy with the demand for a lot of starships, or you can
Mhm.
send them out explore and do an insane amount of science out in the solar system.
Right.
And a 10 million GPU data center would need, if the prices stay the same for GPUs, $40,000 for each GPU. That'd be about $400 billion for the GPUs, and then you make and build all the other facilities there. Again, you're in the range of the stuff. Um, Tesla is looking to make Dojo 2 chips, AI chips, their own. That would be about
Right.
the same performance as a B200, NVIDIA B200 chip. And then by the time this will be a few years away, they would have the next generation chip, a Dojo 3. I could see Tesla getting those down to $10,000 per.
Mm.
So then $10,000 per chip with performance coupled to NVIDIA, then you'd have $100 billion for your GPUs. And
Mm.
then if all the energy and other stuff you're making with Tesla bots and building the mining and other stuff like that, then you know you're having a data center that would be far cheaper than things on Earth. And the time to compute, if it takes a year or more to transmit the thing, that again, all within time frames that are acceptable for AI training.
Right.
And if you're doing the most with set the bots, you don't need a bunch of oxygen or whatever like that for this thing. So again, this goes to the history of it. That basically, in the 1600s, the nations that were doing the colonization, England, France, Spain, Portugal, the kings and queens were granting charters and land rights to the traders,
Hmm.
right? The traders were doing the work. The people going on
Hmm.
the ships were
Right.
doing the work.
Right.
They weren't being paid to here's the government giving you your ship. They were
Hmm.
making and building and doing their ships themselves. They were getting political and military protection. Why did they need that? Well, because there were multiple countries doing this thing.
Right.
You know, if I'm a, a Portuguese captain going to the New World to set up something, doing trading, business, or setting up an outpost, I need the military protection of the Portuguese army sending some stuff over there, or the Navy, or whatever, right? So, but I'm protecting myself from possibly Native Indians, also from the French, the British, the Dutch, and whoever, right? If SpaceX is going to Mars, they're way ahead of China and Russia, and there is no need for any protection from the government.
Right.
Plus, they would have 1,000 starships, which are insanely powerful. They're able to go up to Mach 20, Mach 30. You could then, they are basically reusable missiles that would just be
Right.
insanely powerful. So
Right.
they can kind of protect themselves. And then the government took care of the wealth. So they didn't fund everything and say, oh, you're doing this, we're paying everything. No, they were just taking money from the private enterprises and the first joint stock company. So there was the East India Trading Company, one of the biggest in the world. Even the first Jamestown settlement was funded by the Virginia
Mm.
Stock Trading Company.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it was all private enterprise that was doing colonization. They did fur trade, agriculture, a lot of tobacco. Shipbuilding was also a thing. So I'm saying AI data centers and the equivalent of shipbuilding from back then, building starships, are the two main things. Resource extraction doesn't make sense to bring metals and stuff back from space to Earth because we have plenty here. We don't need
But
to bring it.
we don't, but that's an unknown though, because we
Right, right,
really don't know what might be on Mars that we don't have on Earth, or what
right,
might be, like, for instance, if there was diamond mine, if there was diamonds that could be extracted, or plutonium, or things that have a high value compared to their weight, it
right,
might be possible that there would be mining.
right, right. But better to get the mining and then use it in where you are, to
Okay.
build things where you are versus bringing it back.
Mhm. Mhm.
But at some point, a whole economy would occur,
Right.
but
Right.
that's a ways away. Where okay, now we are trading. We have the full million person city, multiple million person cities. Then we can do trading where it makes sense. But I don't think that initially will occur because if I can get resources from Mars, better to make steel on Mars, better to do things with it
Right.
on Mars. Right, you have to bring it from Earth. Yeah. So the other thing, part of the thing with the terraforming, they can dome canyons and craters for Mars cities. I don't have to convert the entire planet. I can
Mhm.
make buildings. I can make nice large things on the surface, just like we have buildings here. We didn't convert everything in Los Angeles into a giant controlled environment. Even though yes, there's the air and stuff that we have, but you could enclose very large areas,
Right.
and still have things very comfortable for people, radiation protection, all those kind of things. Because
Right.
again, you're bringing 250,000 tons
Right.
every
Right.
two
Right.
years.
Oh, true. Yeah. Yeah.
So Sabine, science person, also talked about the fact that if you do terraforming, that if I don't create a magnetosphere, so Earth does have a magnetosphere, Mars does not have a magnetosphere. So that's a magnetic field that protects the planet from the solar wind and other radiation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it doesn't have that. And then Sabine thinks, well, that's a showstopper. I need to put a superconducting wire around the equator of Mars, 3,000 miles, 6,000 miles around, with mass amounts of superconducting power in order to generate a magnetic
Mm-hmm.
field to
Mm-hmm.
protect Mars
Mm-hmm.
from this thing. Not needed. Okay. So Mars' atmosphere weighs 25 trillion tons. It's 6 millibar, 1,000 millibar, one bar is how much Earth is. So the definition, one bar is Earth atmosphere, right? So 6 millibar is Mars atmosphere. So 160 times thinner
Mm-hmm.
than Earth's atmosphere, but still 25 trillion tons. How much does the solar wind take away every year? 3 million tons,
I
right?
see.
100 grams every second. It's a lot, but irrelevant to how
Compared to
much is
25
there,
trillion.
right? Over the course of a million years, yes, I'm losing my atmosphere, right? I
Uh,
will lose 3 trillion tons of atmosphere over a million years. That's a lot.
yeah.
Still
Yeah.
25 to 22, not the whole thing, right?
Right.
So Mars has enough CO2 to triple that atmosphere up to like 70 trillion tons now. If I was to the CO2 that's in the dirt that's frozen ice, CO2 ice,
Mhm.
if I raise the temperature, I get that to go into the atmosphere,
Mm.
right? I will not lose that to space that fast. Okay? It'll happen. So whatever I do to make Mars atmosphere, irrelevant that I don't have a magnetosphere. Irrelevant. Okay? Because I'm only going to lose a tiny amount
Right.
to space, right? It will matter over millions of years, but I'm not talking about that. And I will make my magnetosphere with my superconducting wire down the road. But if I
Okay.
do it 10, 20 years, 100 years later,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
does not matter. Okay. So then the really good pressure point is 65 millibar. So I get it up about 11 times more from where it is today. Then water does not boil at body temperature. That's a good thing. Not having water boil at body temperature,
Mm-hmm.
that means that I don't need a spacesuit, right? So, and our materials on Mars is something called the neolite deposit, where if I was to process that, get that to atmosphere, I will have plenty to get above that 65 millibar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you get 25 trillion tons, get up to 230 trillion tons of atmosphere, and then we're good, right? In terms of like I'm not breathing on Mars. I need to have
Right.
my oxygen mask, but I can kind of like wear a parka or something like that, and I
Mm-hmm.
can, it'd be like, Antarctica or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, not great, but
Right. Right. Right.
I could be
Livable.
safely, yeah, more livable. It's the fixer-upper.
Yeah.
Mars is a
Yeah.
fixer-upper.
Right. Right.
So, how do I heat it up that fast? A research paper where they talk about using nanorods, iron nanorods, and they put it on the atmosphere. So again, we have these figures where it's down around 200 degrees Kelvin, which is about like minus 70 Celsius or like minus 100 Fahrenheit. Really, really cold. right? So I want to, get that temperature up. And if I get more nanorods into it, 270, I'm getting close to about freezing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, so these nanorods, we can make them here on Earth. Here's a little lab scale, small factory thing that
Hmm.
can do it. You need to scale it up, but it can be done. It's not like you're making some magic material,
Right.
right? 14 starships would transport this all there. They talked about doing that transport over like 9 years. If we're going to send 1,000 starships every 2 years, do it all at one time. I don't need
Hmm.
to like wait to do
Yeah.
like stage it out. And
Right.
then once it's operating in 5 to 10 years, I can bring the temperature up 10 degrees Celsius.
Hmm.
So um, you're significant warming over the course of decades. Um, if I start 2030, 10 degrees warmer by 2040, another 10 degrees by 2050, 20 degrees, I'd be, up to minus 50, I'm starting to get, to recognizable human temperatures, like, minus 40, a really cold winter in Saskatchewan where I used to live, or, Alaska, you're getting to temperatures that people can handle.
I got
And it will start making the CO2 thaw, and then that'll increase and you create a chain reaction thing, which will then create the atmosphere.
you. Okay.
So significant amounts of terraforming with reasonable cost and reasonable
Yeah.
materials,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so summarize the business case again: AI training in Starship factories, um, massive AI data centers. No terraforming needed to start off with. You start underground, you do domes and valleys, cover them up, and have really nice large areas. It's not like in a tunnel underground in a basement or something like that. Although initially you may have to do that, but you can get to that. You can also create little trains, like a hyperloop or something like that,
Hmm.
where you're going round and round slowly and giving yourself extra centrifugal force. So you're giving yourself simulated 1G, right?
Hmm.
One gravity instead of the zero point 0.4 gravity, which your bones would be going bad over long term,
I
right?
see.
So if you build things, you can solve big problems.
Got it.
Oh, also, going to Mars, they say about all the radiation. One, I already said that the trip is 3 times shorter, so 3 times less
Right. Right.
radiation problem. Two is because it's so big, I got like 1,000 starships around. I can kind of bundle them up, and
Hmm.
then if I have the water and other fuel around there, then I create many feet,
Hmm.
like 10 feet of water or fuel between me and the outside space.
Hmm.
So that means no radiation problem.
Got it.
I've protected. It's the difference is like it's very harsh and difficult to go in a small tin can from Earth to Mars,
Right.
just
Right.
like it's tough to use a small raft like Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks in Castaway,
Right.
right? He was on that little
Yes.
raft.
Yes.
Very difficult, very dangerous, right? To go on a small raft on the ocean. Small little ship
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
space, very bad. But if I'm on a cruise ship,
Right.
5,000 people, going to on the ocean or going to Mars, then I can have buffets. I can have, you know, you know, Broadway shows. It's not a problem. If I go big, then everything's safer and comfortable.
Right.
Um, as a partial terraforming, as we discussed super greenhouse gases, colonization, government just needs to approve it and sign off on things. And Elon has a really good relationship with the current government, with Trump. Opportunity costs, more opportunity, not less. And more AI, not less. More nuclear, not less. More Mars open the entire solar system and beyond. If I'm making a city on Mars, I can make tens of millions of satellites that are, because we're already at 10,000 satellites around, or close to 10,000 satellites now with Starlink. If you make a one foot telescopes, very light and small, send a bunch of those out to beyond Pluto, and we have sent stuff beyond Pluto, out actually 20 times
Hmm.
further than Pluto.
Hmm.
And then you make these telescopes that use the sun as a gravitational lens. So the
Hmm.
gravity of the sun, 1 million miles across, 1,000 times wider than the Earth, focuses light onto the telescope. That telescope is 10 billion times better, looking
Hmm.
at anything on the other side, exact opposite side of the of the sun, and if you have a bunch of these around the solar system, I can look at every solar system in the galaxy. It'd be like I have a probe looking at them because I'm
Right.
looking, I move around to change my point of view as to what I'm looking at on the other side. So with really big space capability, we can explore the entire galaxy in terms of looking at lakes on other planets, all that kind of stuff. Really high detail, megapixel images of
Mhm.
other planets, other moons, because we have them in the best viewing points in near our solar system, 3 light days away,
Yeah.
20 times further than Pluto. We can have this massive array. So by 2100, we, we've done this thing, we've gotten Mars, and we made our galaxy observation array so that we can then look at all the planets. Then we can figure out where do we want to go next. We already got Mars, we explored the solar system. Where in the galaxy do we want to go next? Let's look before we go. Let's
Mhm. Mhm.
see
Mhm.
everything there. Look, this one had nice lakes and rivers and stuff. Hey, that one, did they just make a super alien giant Great Wall in over there? That looks like technology. Maybe we should go see there, right? So by we don't have to guess. Are there aliens? We would then say, hey, I think there's aliens there. Maybe we
Yeah.
should go there, right? So by doing all this capability, we can take control of our own destiny and take the solar system. Taking Mars is this first step to taking the entire solar system in the galaxy, right? You have to take big steps, right? 1 million people on Mars so that we have the rest of the solar system and then go beyond. Starting with 5 starships in 2026. Elon said he wants to send five
Right. Right.
in 2026. So basically, that is it.
That is it. So those are some of the ways that this would pay for itself. But as we pointed out, you really don't know how it will pay for itself because you don't know what technology you're going to develop because you have to overcome something like terraforming. You have to overcome something like raising the temperature. You have to overcome something like, a gravitational pull on the human that might result in some bone damage or whatever. Or lack of gravitational pull. So you're overcoming all these issues. What does that create? What does that open up that might have a useful opportunity on Earth, plus Mars at that point? But they would have a useful opportunity that wasn't even in your game plan, wasn't a thought in terms of how to accomplish it until that time. The other thing, of course, I'm always talking about the future is going to be all about experience.
Mhm.
And so I think maybe the ultimate experience will not be going and living on Mars. That will be a decision like anybody that decides to immigrate at some point. But going to visit should probably become a very big deal. And it will
Mhm.
be, going to Venice in California or Venice in Italy will be a small deal. It'll still be a
Mhm.
good deal, but it won't be anything like going to the moon or going to Mars. Those will be bigger, more fun, more well, even if they're not more fun, more of something that you'll be able to tell your friends, your kids, and your grandkids about. So I suspect they'll be able to charge a pretty good penny for tourism.
Mhm.
Have you thought of other things that might generate income?
Yeah, yeah. I think the tourism aspect, um, right now you have YouTubers making a lot of money, Instagram people sharing experience. Okay,
Sure.
I'm making a trip to Italy and I'm going to see stuff. I'm going out to explore Everest or Amazon. Those experience videos
Yes.
are something that make a lot of money, get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And the the videos from the exploration of Mars and the moon, that's exploring the Great Frontier. And unlike the Columbus exploring America, um, here, just like we had the video from Neil Armstrong going landing on the moon, that had 600 million people watching it back when the Earth's population was like 4 billion,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then everyone did watch that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
similarly, when we build cities on Mars, everyone's going to want to watch it. I think even Neil deGrasse Tyson Sabine might, transmit from there to say,
Yeah.
hey, look at this amazing stuff. Hey, I didn't think it was going to happen, but look, I guess it did. Then it's going to be very entertaining to watch those things.
Yeah, and kind of you didn't dismiss, but you kind of pass over quickly the idea that there could be minerals of value there. But I'm pretty sure that we have, we're continuing to be able to create new minerals here on Earth. My guess is going to be that there's at least a possibility that there will be mineral types or minerals on Mars that do not exist on Earth. And if there are, bringing those back becomes, not just a Mars rock, but maybe it's a Mars rock that has a great a green hue or, some kind of
So there's some asteroid or some other body that's about like 100 miles across or 50 miles across that has it's mostly all kinds of metals,
mm,
right? Nickel, all that kind of stuff. So based on current Earth prices, that asteroid is worth $100 quadrillion.
100
So
quadrillion.
so it's supposedly worth um, like 1,000 times more than the entire world economy, right?
We can't like lasso it then, huh?
Right, right. But if you have all this capability, you can bring it back. But the point would be that if you did,
Yes.
then the price of nickel would drop to
Uh,
less
yeah.
than the price of water, right? It would,
Right.
just like people don't know that aluminum used to be more expensive than gold.
Right.
So the tip of the Washington Monument was made of aluminum
Aluminum. Yeah.
because it was the most valuable thing, right? But then science came along and we figured out how to make cheap aluminum.
And now I
Right.
wrap now I wrap my turkey dinner for the leftovers to send
Yeah,
home with the crowd. Yes. Okay.
right, right. So if we bring back, so one, probably not economic to bring it back. If it
Right.
becomes economic to bring it back, once we bring so much of it back, it will drive down the price of it. So you'll have a temporary opportunity to
Well,
capture some value to do it.
that's why you
And
have that's why you have cartels.
right,
You have to control how much of it comes back.
right, right, right. But so there is a million times more million times more material out in the solar system
Right.
versus here.
Right.
So if you want a world of abundance,
Mhm.
then you take the entire solar system and there will be abundance. Abundance of energy, 10 billion times more energy than we have now, and also abundant minerals and materials all over the solar system. So like, uranium and stuff, we know where there's like huge amounts of it, all kinds of fossil fuels, all kinds. You can move the industry off and do whatever you want.
Uh,
So there's no reason if we conquer the solar system that we can't do whatever we want, do as much material as we want. Everyone can be a billionaire, trillionaire, equivalent of today because we'll have all this other material.
right.
And if people say, well, that can't happen, from the time of World War II, which people, we always watch the movies, TV shows about World War II, it
Right.
looks kind of similar. Hey, they had, gas vehicles and all that kind of stuff. It seems not different when I look at the war
Right.
in Ukraine, World War II
Yes.
war,
Yeah.
Ukraine war seems similar. We haven't really advanced that much. But we have 15 times more oil and steel every year than the world economy in World War II.
Right.
So 80 years, we have 15, 20 times more than we had back then. And that's the scaling of our civilization is the size of it. That people don't understand the economics of, they think, oh, a tank looks like a tank, right? It's different because of
Right.
how much. So that whole thing in World War II, where Hitler wanted to take the oil fields of the Caucasus and go to Stalingrad to get past Stalingrad to take that oil, that was like one, there was only 10, 15% of the world oil at the time, right?
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
US had 80% of the oil. And then two is all of that was 10% of oil back then being 50%, less than 1% of like a day's worth of oil,
Completely.
was what we had in that entire oil field, right? Of what we have now. So
Yeah.
when we get to the solar system, we'll have way, way more. So everyone should be rich, everyone should do whatever. We should hurry up and get to space in a major way and develop it. Then we have as much as we want. One will have as much as we want from AI and robots like that. But resource wise, energy wise, where we have really no limits, is hurry up and get off, as opposed to this idea of, oh, if I spend $1 trillion, I won't get it back, and it'll prevent us from doing other stuff. That's like some kind of like zero sum thinking about how
Right.
things work. It just like is silly.
Well, and then you have to take into consideration Elon's reasons. So there's two. You've only talked about one of them. I think the one of them that he talks about the most is that in case something happens to Earth, we can get in our arcs and
Yeah,
we can speed over to Mars and add to the colony on Mars and keep human civilization going. Of course, there might already be a million people there, so even if we all died, there would still be a million humans continuing civilization. But the other one he talks about is keeping life interesting.
right,
I mean, that's a biggie, you know.
right.
I mean, to the extent that in 2 years, we send five of these ships up to Mars, that will be a very interesting headline. That will be a very interesting story. There will be
Mm,
videos, there will be all kinds of stuff that comes out of that that will be interesting for the rest of humanity to watch and pay attention to. Then if we shoot off 1,000 of them, Elon's already talked about that. He says, imagine, that we're shooting off 1,000 of these starships. It would be what a picture that will be. And
right.
so yeah, keeping life interesting, I think is a definite reason for doing things.
And for people who don't know, because we've had, um, you know, closing in on, 55, 60 years since the first Apollo landings, that that during the 70s, it was like everyone wanted to be an astronaut. All the guys wanted to be an astronaut. It was expected that we develop space, and then everyone was studying, science and engineering and stuff like that because, hey, I want to be part of this thing. The vision of Star Trek was that, we would have this thing, we would move
Yeah,
into that. And it's been delayed, but if it does happen, it will be great for all of us. Like in terms of like, all the issues of like, oh, we don't have enough STEM. We don't have science, technology, engineering, and math. We
yeah,
can't convince people to study it.
right, right,
If you're going to Mars and doing this kind of, and the moon, all kind of stuff, and the math and space program, you will not have a problem
right,
getting the
right,
people to study this stuff. It'll be like, of course I'm going to study that. Of course I'm going to go out and do that. Like the fact that other people are going there, like that's where we want to go. The whole Star Trek world, other than, warp drive and teleporting, we can have all of that just within the solar system. Like
right.
that whole world by 2080 or something like that, 2070 is something that could broadly be the case. Because if you're dumping a million people on Mars, you're going to develop Deimos and Phobos, the moons of Mars. You can have our moon, you can have big space stations, big space hotels around orbit. You'll go to the rest of the solar system. To think that I'm only going to go to Mars and come back, only there and back. I'm making 1,000 trips every 2 years, but that's all I'm doing. Like, no, you're doing the whole thing, right?
Well, okay. I think you've made the case. There is money to be made. Elon is not
Yes.
just going to give away his trillion and
Yes.
then get his final triumph. He is going to invest his trillion and make 5 trillion.
Right. And we're already spending trillions on a lot of other stuff that's doing a lot less. This will be one of the best trillions that we've ever spent, for humanity. And I think that all the stuff that Elon is doing, where he's already got half a trillion, like developing Tesla bots, well, that's something that'd be very useful for Mars. Developing Cybertruck, well, yeah, that's the very thing that's very useful for Mars. Developing Boring Company, that's something very useful for Mars. It seems like all the stuff that he's figuring out of solving the Mars problem is already making him rich. So, you know, and then AI, I make
Yes.
AI. I need it for
Yeah.
Mars.
Right.
So the challenge of doing Mars
Is
is already
already having his
making him
impact.
money, making me money, making you money.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Cool.
great.
Okay, I'm out of questions, and that's it.
Okay.
I'm sure I can think of more, but that's all I got for now.
If anyone else has other questions, put them in the comments. Hopefully I can and try and answer them. Also, if you subscribe, Patreon and stuff like that, we can try and communicate and talk more about it. Send suggestions for videos, and then we'll follow up. Okay. Thank you.